Good morning. I'm Scott Finley, and I'll be your service coordinator today. Our Souls Matter theme this month is Beloved Community. I am so happy that Reverend Sara Green is joining us today with a sermon she describes as follows. Building off the work of imagination, let's talk about the fuel we need to sustain that imagination, love. Dr. Cornel West reminds that of the many ways love looks, it looks like justice in public. Let's explore the audacious, bold, and enterprising sort of love we are called to by the prophets of our time. Working with us today are Jesse as our Zoom host, Karen as co-host, and Sandy is at GNUUC today. As Sandy lights our chalice today, I'll be reading Ignite in Us Radical Love by Reverend Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This, a chalice of audacious hope, this chalice shines a light on your shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals. Although we are still physically distant, please feel free to contact GNUUC anytime you feel the need. You can reach Reverend Cynthia by emailing her address on the screen or by phone or text at 859-221-3034. To any folks who are joining us for the first time, you are welcome here. Though signing a statement of faith or agreeing to believe in the same way as anyone else isn't a prerequisite to joining GNUUC, we do have boundaries on how we treat each other and our community. Please join me in reading our covenant. We covenant together to make a welcoming community, to walk together in the way of truth and love, to seek the life of the Spirit as it is known by each person, to support each other in thought, word, and deed as we work to build a better world. For our opening song, please join in singing Circle Round for Freedom.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round circle for the planet.
And muted.
Circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
Our reading today, I think this is the reading part. Right, Scott? Okay, great.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. Is Widening Circles, written originally by Rainer Maria Rilke, but translated by Joanna Macy. I'll read it twice. I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. I may not complete this last one, but I give myself to it. I circle around God, around the primordial tower. I've been circling for thousands of years, and I still don't know. Am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song? I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. I may not complete this last one, but I give myself to it. I circle around God, around the primordial tower. I've been circling for thousands of years, and I still don't know. Am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song?
And now for today's Time for All Sages, we'll hear the story We March by Shane W. Evans.
We March, a story by Shane W. Evans. The morning is quiet, and we prepare to march. We pray for strength. We work together. We come from all over to march. We follow our leaders. We walk together. We sing. We are hot and tired, but we are filled with hope. We lean on each other. As we march to justice, to freedom. As we march to our dreams.
The Tennessee Justice Center is our Share the Plate partner for February. Now having served the community for over 25 years, the Tennessee Justice Center has made an incredible impact for moms and children with special needs, for older adults and caregivers, for people with disabilities and those who need long-term care, and many, many more. They help our neighbors one by one to cut through red tape to access vital, sometimes life-saving services like healthcare and nutrition benefits. and then use what they learn to improve systems affecting many more. Whether in the courtroom, newspaper, or Capitol, they advocate for a state that reflects our community's shared values, that protects the dignity and opportunity of every person, and that supports the healthcare and economic infrastructure on which all our communities depend. The coronavirus pandemic exacerbates existing inequities, with Black and Hispanic Tennesseans 3 times as likely to be infected and twice as likely to die. Black Tennesseans are only 17% of Tennessee's population, but comprise 32% of COVID-19 related deaths due to several factors that include lack of health insurance. The Tennessee Justice Center is proud to be a part of a community of leaders, movers, and shakers who work to achieve health equity in our area and around the nation. Please give generously to the Tennessee Justice Center in support of their work to provide justice and equity in everyone's access to health care and nutrition. Now, please watch this video about one Tennessee Justice Center staffer continuing her work protecting the health coverage of affected Tennesseans even after she lost everything. Plus, you'll see how TJC's mission has become all the more urgent in light of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh my God,
At least 2 tornadoes touched down, including one that caused heavy damage near downtown Nashville.
I'd like to talk to you about the new virus that causes the disease COVID-19. Stay home as much as possible and avoid crowds.
This obviously comes at a time when Nashville wants and needs to give each other a big hug.
And it was like a boom, and we looked outside the windows and we saw the trees moving in a, like huge trees moving in a circle like that. And so we immediately jumped out of bed, and it was, I heard another loud boom, and it was just a second. We jumped into our shower, and in a second it was done, and we sort of looked up and we were outside. So that we could protect coverage for vulnerable Tennesseans. Annually, everyone has to complete forms and complete paperwork proving that they're still eligible or still qualified for coverage. I think through this whole crisis, we're sort of finding that our communities have power to protect the vulnerable people and protect our loved ones and our neighbors more than maybe we thought before.
Often when disaster strikes, it's the most vulnerable who pay the steepest price because people who are making policies just don't know. They don't know. And so, a big push to let's close schools. Well, what happens to those children who depend on school meals? Those sorts of things are what the Justice Center has done for almost 25 years now, is basically making sure that the daily realities of low-income Tennesseans are considered when policies are made. We had to figure out how we got food to low-income folks who were hit by the tornado, how we made sure that people's health coverage was maintained, because if they had to show that they were still eligible and they didn't even have papers, because some of the papers were blown to 3 counties over, we wanted to make sure and protect those things. So we acted really quickly to to basically stop anything that would harm clients and low-income folks any further than they were already harmed. How do we take this moment where everybody understands for the first time maybe ever how interconnected we all are, and use it to create policy that protects us all, both in terms of the folks we go to church with, but also the people who might be sneezing in the grocery store aisle. We want to make sure that everybody has the health coverage they need to have full lives. Healthcare, as we've always said, it's what makes us all, it's what unites us all. We're all human, we all bleed. You don't go into a hospital as a Republican or a Democrat. And this, I don't know of something that could make us feel more interconnected with each other than this pandemic. I think that many people in America assume, if you really are in need, you'll get it. The truth is, you don't. You don't get it if you really are in need. You get it if you're insured.
Please donate as you are able in any of the ways shown on the screen. If you'd like to mail a check, please don't mail it to the church's address. Instead, please email the church at gnuuc@gnuuc.org, and Chris will reply with the correct mailing address to send in your donation check. Again, thank you for the generosity you have always shown as a congregation. And now we'll hear the various musical groups of the First UU of Ann Arbor lead us in our meditation. Alleluia.
Alleluia.
Well, good morning. It is so such a blessing. Oh, it's not my turn yet. Sorry. Discombobulated this morning. My apologies.
No, that's
Have so much to say.
all right. Well, this is a great segue. I'm very happy to welcome Reverend Sara back to our congregation this morning. Reverend Sara roots for the saints, stays ready for Mardi Gras year round, and is learning all the time about justice, community, singing, and integrity. She's a queer Black mama to Peyton, Mackenzie, and Emil, and partner to Huntsville-born Ben. She's affiliated as a community minister with First UU Church of Nashville and graduated from Vanderbilt Divinity School. She works as the youth and young adult program manager at the UUA, running programs specifically for youth of color and young adult organizers and changemakers. Moving her body through dance, singing justice songs quietly to herself, and cooking meals entirely from scratch are some of her spiritual practices. Reverend Sara, welcome back to GNUC. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Scott. It is, like I said a couple of moments ago, such a blessing to be with you here today. It's starting to feel like, I'm going about the weeks in between our time together, and I get so excited. I'm getting so excited to share with you what I am discovering as we journey together. So welcome to the year of February. January certainly felt like another one of those months that was its own year. And here we are in February, still in a place of reorienting ourselves into so many new normals. Even as the vaccine is becoming somewhat available, there is still such a long road to go. And same with the new administration, such a long way to go. And last month, we talked about imagination as a critical skill to hone to help us move through these seasons and into a new way of being. I remember from our last time together, many of us were wrestling with how do we remember, reorganize, reorient our families, some of whom have wildly different views about what needs to happen in this moment. And we were wrestling with trying to bring them in, is what I remember from some of the comments after the service. And some of us were tired and exhausted and a little surprised that even in the beginning of the year, we were feeling so worn down and trying to discern if that was just our adrenaline, just flushing out of our bodies from the last 4 years, trying to make sense of all of it. I left that conversation thinking, wow, this is really heavy work. And imagination, while a lovely idea, doesn't feel like a sustaining one. Like there needs to be food or fuel or sustenance for one's imagination. And we talked about it a little bit, about reading stories of marginalized folks, listening to music that really gets our imaginations flowing. But I think I've got some juicy new ways to think about it. And so we're in February, which is a month in which we interrogate in all the ways Valentine's Day, and we quote celebrate Black History Month, and it's just and then it's winter, so still lots of information coming to us about what is required of us in the world. Love being one of those central notions. So my first draft of the sermon was what if love is affording to everyone the 7 principles? I went through all of the things that would make us feel good about love, the affection and the commitment and all of our really amazing and integral UU values. But then I turned to some modern day prophets, people that I consider my ministers. And I was really curious about what they had to say. The people that I looked to were Reverend Jennifer Bailey, who actually lives in Nashville. She helped to found the Faith Matters Network that is training movement chaplains and is hosting, as part of a partnership that hosts the People's Supper, which brings together people that sound like lots of our families that come from lots of different places and orientations to have a conversation. So I looked at what she had to say. I looked at what Reverend Elizabeth Wynn had to say, who's a UU minister living in Boston. She's my mentor, and I always find her words very prophetic. And then I wanted to turn to Cornel West, which I admittedly did first. And he has that famous quote. I don't know if you've heard it, but it goes, justice is what love looks like in public, and tenderness is what love looks like in private. And of course, it's a very robust idea, but I tried to look for I want to know the context. So I looked for the sermon or the talk, and it was buried. And I said, okay, we need a backup. Maybe I'm not at this gem quite yet. And so I went back to Reverend Jennifer Bailey and Reverend Elizabeth Wynn, and I noticed a pattern. Jennifer Bailey writes about the women who accompanied Jesus all the way through his ministry to the cross. And she writes about their love as a commitment to not turn away from the despair, from the suffering of Jesus and his ministry. And that was the definition of love, that nugget, that is, I will not turn away from suffering. And then what do you know? Reverend Elizabeth Wynn says almost verbatim the same thing. She says, I don't want to misquote it. She said, and I don't mean easy love, smiling on the street, being kind to a neighbor. I mean the love that says both I won't turn away from suffering, and also I will know that it's not enough to love without skill and action. But immediately I was so taken aback that they had said almost the same thing about bearing witness to suffering. I found a little piece of Cornel West writing about this when he talks about the blues and a catastrophic love, talks about the lives of marginalized and oppressed people being catastrophic. It's that part strikes me as a parent and as someone who has witnessed the foster care system. These lives are catastrophic. They're beautifully, wonderfully tragic. And that the love that we are called into is bearing witness to that. So there was a pattern. And Cornel West kind of gives it a name, this catastrophic love, where we are called to continue to bear witness. And then I wrap my brain around bearing witness as an act of love. So then I could kind of return back to Cornel West, and I could follow him a little bit longer, because I don't know if you've listened to much Cornel West or read much of what he's read, but he has a lot to say. And you really have to be on your P's and Q's to follow it. But he talks about this catastrophic love requiring us to die daily. And that it's an acknowledgement of death and tragedy. And an acknowledgement of harm, and to still do the work, to remain in the work regardless. That is the package. Those are the ingredients of love, to acknowledge the suffering and to still show up. So it's been really amazing how that has come into my life over the last week and made itself relevant, including a conversation with one of our UU elders of color. I wanted to ask her, because she has done so many really amazing and complicated things with her ministry. I asked her, how are you making decisions? How are you deciding where to lend your time and energy? And that feels like something that we are asking ourselves in this moment. How do we reorient, remember, make decisions to pivot or to stay the course? How do you do that? I asked her. And she said, in summation, it's a combination of a risk assessment and harm reduction strategy. She echoed what Cornel West said as an acknowledgement of death and harm, and a commitment to do the best work she can, grounded in her integrity. So maybe you're asking, how exactly is this sustaining? Because I'm really just hearing you say, Sara, that people are gonna die, people are gonna get hurt, and you're asking me to commit to the work in the midst of, which upon first glance, I acknowledge could be draining, could really lead to some serious burnout, could really lead to hopelessness and despair when it feels like the needle isn't moving in any direction. But here's how I am thinking it's sustaining us. The first way is that it frees us from exceptionalism. It frees us from the idea that it's all on us, or that we're the ones, for no particular reason, that are going to make it out alive. I had this realization when I was in South Africa, and I read Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, who's a philosopher and strategist. And it occurred to me like, oh, people are going to die, and this generation is no different. So in that shedding of exceptionalism, I want to propose that we can allow ourselves to have the full range of the human experience, that it's not about joys and rainbows and winning. It's about the inevitable losses as well. And to know that it's coming means that we can be choiceful about our energy, we can be thoughtful about the work we do and with whom, and we can rest. The second way I think this is sustaining is that it makes space for learning and transformation. In this idea that Cornel West talks about of needing to die daily, it creates spaciousness to not have to remain the same person. I mean, how much energy have you spent trying to remain the same person despite being given contradicting information? Maybe some of you are parents and have learned this lesson. Well, when you think you have the plan, you have the answers. And from my personal experience, when I have denied myself that space for learning and transformation, I am exhausted. But when I am malleable and flexible and curious, I find the way that we move together as a family is is full of more ease. And then lastly, I want to propose that love, this type of love allows us to be more present and less delusional. And again, similar to the last point, we spend less energy maintaining this facade. What if Unitarian Universalists spent less time maintaining our facade of the good liberal people and bore more witness to harm and suffering and oppression? We're approaching, I think we've passed 450,000 deaths from COVID with no witnessing, with no public mourning, nothing. We have this facade that we have it all under control, even though that is quickly fading away. So I wonder, as we head towards Valentine's Day and more slowly but steadily towards a new normal, I wonder if we can love in this way, if we can lead with grief and reality, if we can be propelled by those things into action. I wonder, and this is a real wondering, if we can drop the lie that everything will be okay and still keep showing up. I am hopeful that we can keep practicing presence anyways. And this is how we as Unitarian Universalists can lend our love to the world and ourselves. And I believe that we can do this humbly, gracefully, and honest. May it be so.
Thank you so much, Reverend Sara. With that message, you give me a lot to think about, especially considering melding love with skill and action going this week forward. Thank you. And now we'll listen to our next song, Gather the Spirit.
Separate fires will kindle on flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Again, gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in
Now is the time of the service where we share joys and concerns. Thank you to those of you who joined us on YouTube. Jesse, our Zoom host, will now turn off our